Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today. Tacitus State, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio, audio, no pictures live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the globalist leftist, and it's turning into a habit, if it's not already a habit, of removing judges from the courts, just arbitrarily firing them. You're out of here, buddy, if they don't make the correct decisions, the woke decisions, the decisions that the globalists want. And at the same time, the same people aggressively protecting judges that do make the proper globalist, leftist, woke-approved decisions from the bench. Now, I just want to, before I go any further with this and point out sort of examples, and there are many of them now, the globalist government plan is ideological. None of it is with the consent of the people. And because it lacks consent, it therefore lacks legitimacy. Therefore, they have to infiltrate all the systems of law and justice and use those as devices and weapons against the people, but also as a device to give themselves a legitimacy. They can then say that anyone that disagrees with them is a lawbreaker. Anyone that does agree with them, the globalist project, is a good sanctified person, and so on. So by promoting race, gender, sexual orientation, conflict, they create the social dislocation that they need to push the globalist project, and they can do it under the protection of the legal system, which they have infiltrated. So that's the architecture of it all. Now just on the, I noticed that just recently I was doing some channel surfing, and I saw a case where a judge, this was in a gender conflict case. And I'll be careful on this. To give you an idea, I criticised a decision made by a certain court in a gender conflict. It's she said, he said type conflict situation, and I criticised the legal decision there, and much to my astonishment, YouTube banned the video and put a strike on me for that. Now, it was a personal opinion and so on, and why they would want to so aggressively move against a small channel like this shows, I think, that you're over the target. But anyway, this was a similar decision, a he said, she said type decision, and the judge just imprisoned the man, or the young man, for 6 months, and given, I would think even that was, in my view at least, somewhat harsh given the circumstances of it. But anyway, but this was outrage because it was a gender conflict thing. Gender power relations thing, and this nothing gets the left more excited than stuff like that. Race conflict, social power, all this sort of crap. They live in this ideological fantasy world where all the horrors are imagined rather than real, but they want to act out these fantasies in ideological courtrooms. So, but much to my surprise, well, actually not to my surprise, the local Democrat Party authorities just decide to fire this judge. That's it, you're out. Now, given it was just the guy had made a decision that they didn't like. There was no error in law. There was no procedural error. There was nothing about it you could point to say that the judge had failed in his jurisprudential duties, but they decided to fire him because they didn't like the decision he made. Now, there was also a concerted effort here before getting rid of the judge, the local media decided to run stories about it. Poor oppressed young woman. They're like college kids. Poor oppressed young woman. Evil young man, and it's the patriarchy. It's misogyny, and it was a real ginned up. There was a coordinated campaign where out-of-town agitators came to the senior high schools and universities, and street marches, all very choreographed, all very ginned up, all very scripted and stage managed. This is all just to get this judge, by the way. No, the media don't cover any of that. They don't say the out-of-town agitators. They don't talk about the stage manager of the whole thing. Then the politicians who have planned this from the outset can then get them say, wow, given the huge community outcry, we have to do something. We have to do something for the people. And so they just fired this judge, which by now, given all the media frenzy and all the agitation on the street, would suggest or imply that he was guilty of some wrongdoing. And then they did, including featuring the woman at at the centre of this controversy, to then giving her free airtime to say how outrageous it was. Then her mother was on there crying, and then lesbian academics saying, yeah, it's the patriarchy, and something has to be done, this sort of stuff. And so the judge was fired. Now the judge has, you'll never work in this town again. I think they went to him and said, look, if you resign quietly, we'll fix you up with another job. And he said, look, I haven't done anything wrong. This is my reading of it, by the way. I'm assuming this is how these things go, having been at senior levels in business for quite some time, and at that level of sort of activity, this is how they approach it. So, and he said, no, I've done nothing wrong. Why should I do that? I'm a judge, and how dare you politically interfere with the workings of the court? And he would have been quite right in making that point, because it's a blatant, brazen political interference with the legal process here, in a supposedly independent court of law. So I think he turned them down. So they thought, okay, well, that's it. We've got no choice but to go nuclear on this, which they did. And now he's said, you'll never work in this town again. So the guy is unemployable, in effect. I mean, if he goes to maybe many states away or something, in terms of his life in that place, it's as far as I can tell, ruined. Now, but that's one example. So wherever we see, currently at least, wherever we see conflict on race, so it's white versus black race, that sort of thing, gender, him versus her, this is in a court case, or wherever we see sexuality, straight person versus gay, lesbian, trans, these sorts of, so what the activist left wants, very much encouraged by the globalists and the George Soroses and the destroy the West socially, what they want is, in any sort of these legal contests, they want the decision by the judge, they want the decision made on the basis of who has the most social power or the least social power. So this party has the least social power, therefore the judge must find in favour of the person with the least social power. It doesn't really matter whether they committed the crimes or not. It doesn't matter whether the evidence is really strong against them. None of these things matter. What matters is the ideological determination, and it is ideological, the ideological determination of group social power. This group has more social power, ideologically determined again, than that group, and therefore the judge must make the decision in favour of and in support of the group with the least social power. So this is a key and critical building block to furthering and creating and fostering social dislocation, up to the point of creating anarchy, which is, I believe, the Black Lives Matter, the BLM thing, which is, I believe, their intention. So, Black Lives Matter, Antifa can torch buildings, beat people up, murder people. Nothing happens to them. Climate change protesters can create all sorts of mayhem. Nothing happens to them. But if you want to happen to wander around the Capitol building on January 6th, then you will be hunted down ruthlessly by the FBI and so on, and thrown in prison without trial, and with the writ of habeas corpus apparently suddenly not being applied. So these are the two differences in the multi-tier and particularly two-tier, in this case, justice system. Now, judges that brazenly break the law, that decide make the decisions that are consistent with and in favour of the globalist position. So deciding and always against people who supposedly have the most social power, regardless of evidence, stacking courts, stacking juries, evidence tampering, permitting wholesale perjury. Judges that make those decisions and allow that sort of chicanery to go on, they're protected, whereas ones that do not are being removed. So in it's I've made I've sort of put a bit of time into this and looked around of all the judges that I can find who've been either run out of the court, life made so miserable for them that they leave, or in other jurisdictions where it's possible that the body politic, the governor or a majority of the assembly or something like that can vote to get rid of them, or where their contract can just be ended. You pay them out and just show them the door. Those sorts of things. Then in those sort of situations, there are actually a vast number of judges that are getting fired. And I wasn't. I considered there be quite a few, but I had no idea it'd be this many, and that it's always for the same thing. There's no variation in this, that the judge is getting fired for misappropriation of funds or breaking the law or those sorts of things. The judge is getting fired for not making the woke decision. So there's many judges are getting fired for not deciding in her favour or deciding sufficiently in her favour in a she said he said type case, and also in racial cases where the white man and the black man, two separate court cases, for example, come into court, then he gets a good behaviour bond, but he gets a substantial fine and a few years in prison, this sort of thing. So now, if the black man is given lengthy prison time, career criminal, another offence type prison time, then the judge is viewed as having transgressed. No, that's not what we want you to do. Don't think the law is there to weigh evidence and assess guilt and test evidence and operate on the facts. It's not. They're openly, the various areas. It's now, you must make decisions ideologically. The evidence is irrelevant. The ideology is what must guide your decision. Now, you see this in things like, say the divorce courts, where that are heavily laden with ideology, where one ideology or one sort of interpretation or worldview is applied, that he is the oppressor and he's evil, his intentions are bad, he's a Nazi, he's this, and wife bashing, child abusing, pedophile, Nazi, fascist, Hitler, and all that. And the prejudicial predetermination that comes with ideological law, of course, is in itself quite absurd, and yet it's considered to be, well, it's compensating, it's compensating people, this group of people for centuries of oppression by that group of people. Therefore, the evidence doesn't really matter, but the ideology and the outcome does. And more now we're seeing the judges are being fired, got rid of, or even in jurisdictions where they can't get rid of the judge. The judges may have got a lifetime appointment, for example, or they've got a contract that runs until they say they turn 65 or something like that. Then they can still make life quite miserable for these people. They can humiliate them, give them bullshit cases to hear, overload them with cases so they're working their ass off. Give them, they may not give them assistance, like the judge's secretary or judge's assistant. Give them assistants that maybe don't speak English, for example, so they can get at them in all sorts of ways. Their parking spot in the parking lot, the special judge's parking lot, is their office is the renovations or upgrades or repairs to their office somehow always seem to be late. They're given a broom closet as an office in the meantime. Things like that, so they can humiliate them in a number of ways and treat them like shit, so that they get the message and think, well, I'm taking this. Well, we'll pay you out for your contract if you want to go. It's up to you. We're not saying you have to go. So they'll treat them like that. They'll make sure that news media articles are circulated about the judge that defame them, and make out they're useless or stupid or evil or fascist or something. So they'll circulate stories like that. If the judge tries to respond in the media to clear their name, then they'll be subject to disciplinary action by the Justice Department for not behaving in a manner. So they'll be gagged while they can be attacked from all sides in the media in stories that are circulated by the political establishment, and so they can get judges to leave there. Judges that maybe have seniority and are entitled to promotions, they'll deny them those promotions and engage in humiliating behaviour to humiliate them in various, can be quite subtle ways, but nonetheless. In the event where the body politic can make an arbitrary decision, the governor, for example, the governor can say, well, I'm only acting on the advice of the experts. Just turns out the experts are all angry black lesbians or something. So they can, and then they get rid of the judge. But this is increasing. It was, if you go back, it sort of started happening in the 90s. Well, certainly it was hardly ever. If you found cases before that, it's because the judge had behaved, had been stealing money or something. There'd been a serious breach of basic behaviour, theft and that sort of thing, or the judge had been, caught having intimate relations with their assistant or something like that, and it had all gone south. But what's happening here is that it's just ideological, that the judge has committed no crime, the judge has done nothing wrong, the judge has made no error in law or anything else, but they're still being got rid of because they're not making the correct decision, again, when it comes to like race, gender, sexual orientation type issues. So we have to accept that, given how widespread this is, that the entire legal system, with a few pockets here and there, is now being captured by the globalist leftist. Now, this is a terrifying consideration, because what it'll mean is that the globalist controlled governments will be dragging as many cases they can into courts, using taxpayer dollars to fund the supposed aggrieved party, and then making sure that activist judges are hearing the case, as they often do now with climate change, BLM stuff, and so on. Activist judges incredibly are hearing the cases. When you look in the US, the cases against Trump, it's not hard for them to get hold of activist judges and then drag someone they don't like into the courtroom to be kangaroo courted through the place and then thrown in the slammer or fined heavily or something like that, or simply have their lives made so difficult to lead that they become tame and compliant, which is of course another. Within Trump's case, if he'd become tame and compliant, they would have left him alone. They're only going after him because he won't become tame and compliant to the globalist project. So that's the only reason they're chasing him. It's punishment for not being compliant enough. So this is where we're at now and we can see it even on a broader stage, where, say, the International Criminal Court. There's little doubt that the international, in my view, this is my opinion, of course, the International Criminal Court is subject to political intimidation. I mean, I just, even before going to, just think of a judge now. A case comes before you where somebody whispers in your ear, and they've got a way of letting you know what they want. We want you to produce, a sentence this straight white guy to minimum 10 years in prison. This is what we want you to do. Now, if you don't do it, we're going to make your life really miserable and you'll be out of a job. It's only one guy. Who cares about this one guy? He's a nobody. Give him 10 years. It doesn't matter if the evidence doesn't lead to it. It doesn't matter if there's no evidence against him. We want you to make this decision because of the visuals, the optics, and the ideology underpinning it. We're telling you that's what we want, so fucking do it. If you don't do it, we'll make sure you pay a price for not doing what we tell you to do. So now you disagree with it, you're outraged by it, you're privately, but then you think about your mortgage, and your wife maybe wants to conduct some sort of art classes, or your children are at university, and you think about all the ways they can get at you, and you don't want to suddenly find that as the police walk in the front door that you've got gigabytes of child porn has magically just appeared on your computer and this sort of thing. So you think about all that, and you think, well, okay, they just want me to put this one guy in prison for 10 years, even though he didn't do anything. He's committed no crime. He's innocent, and da 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 da. So I'll do what they want. I mean, yeah, it's I'm sacrificing one person here, this straight white guy they want to just use as a piece of symbolism here, but I'm saving my wife and 3 children, this sort of thing. So any human is going to think it through along those lines. Some guys may dig in, but they'll know the judge, the last judge at the side. No, fuck yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm an independent judge, an independent court of law. I'm not going to tolerate political interference in my court. Then they know what happened to that judge. That judge is unemployed on the street, no prospects of ever being employed again, roundly condemned in the media and hit pieces and so on, and da da da, and his wife divorced him, and he's this and he's living in the poorhouse. All this sort of stuff would be things that they'd be thinking about. So why should they be a hero? Just do what the fuck that these political hack globalist goon stooges want, and then he's home free. So those are decisions that that would be the decision making process you go through. Just come back to this International Criminal Court. At the moment, there's a bit of a carry on where there's rumours that the International Criminal Court is or was considering or might issue criminal warrants, arrest warrants, as I understand it anyway, against some of the senior members of the Israeli government for their supposed or alleged actions in Gaza, in the conflict that's going on there currently. Now, whether that's warranted or not is I'm not going to comment on it. But are they going to simultaneously issue arrest warrants for all the Hamas people and the government members in Gaza that either knew of or approved the attack on Israel months ago? Will there be arrest warrants for them? As I understand, it's not. It's just a one-sided thing. Maybe it is, but my understanding, as limited as it might be, is that it's a rather one-sided gig here, where they're going after just the members of the Israeli administration, as I understand it, political and public service alike. So this has obviously outraged the Israelis, but this has outraged certain sections of the American establishment, the political establishment. And my understanding is, or the allegations are, that they in turn have brought political pressure on the ICC, the International Criminal Court, to not do this, and if they are considering it, to unconsider doing it, or if they've started the initial processes to not follow through on them. Now, this is the same criminal court that issued various arrest warrants on other political leaders, including Vladimir Putin in Russia. So that was a blatant political thing, I believe. That was a blatant political thing there. So is the International Criminal Court simply a political toy and plaything where the globalists can just go after people they don't like and protect those that they do? So this is something that indicates, it's writ large, if you like, that it's considered to be completely acceptable by the globalists. Absolutely acceptable, just how you do business, that you infiltrate legal systems once independent, or largely at least once independent legal systems, you infiltrate them and just turn them into ideological, political playthings. And that's how things are done now, and that's the accepted way. And to actually not do. Now, I've spoken to people who you'd think would be, people who are, this is Ivy League, college educated, living in leafy, wealthy suburbs, and spoken to them about these sorts of things, about politicizing courts and turning into ideological, manipulation houses. And as long as the decisions are made, they see it in an infantile way. Well, as long as decisions are made against Trump, then that's good. As long as decisions are made against those straight white people, then what about a decision made against you? No. Other people have to suffer, not me. Well, don't you think that if justice is completely independent and impartial and not politicized, not ideological, that's actually better for everybody, because then you're protected as I am, and the folks down the road and the other guys around the corner, because everyone then is subject to the sovereignty of independent and no. It should be ideological law as long as it's the other guy that's getting it. If it's me that might get it, then I don't want that. Fuck. So that's the level of debate and comprehension going on these days. You've been with Tassus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.